recording. Welcome, Eamonn. How are you?
Very well, Chip. How are you?
Oh, we're super happy to have you. Actually, I'm joined with my colleague, Mike Dowling.
Very nice to meet you, Eamonn. How are you today?
Very well, Mike. How are you doing?
Excellent.
So, Eamonn, Lemongrass. We'd love to hear and learn more about Lemongrass, a company that is an AWS premier partner, consulting partner, a company that has a number of competencies as well as service delivery badges that you've earned over the course of almost a 12-year history in the business. And I've just heard from so many of our customers and in those that we work with internally at AWS, just incredible positive feedback regarding the work that you and your team do. So Mike and I would love to learn more about your story. You founded the business almost 12 years ago. Why did you do it 12 years ago? And if I can reflect back in time, 12 years ago was just at the end of a financial meltdown, global financial meltdown. Why did you decide to do what you did? And then ultimately partnering with AWS to build a business, to bring something unique to market. So we'd love to hear it.
Sure. Okay. Well, yeah, when we started the business, it was, my background was SAP, and my co-founder Walter was SAP as well. So we knew the industry pretty well. And one of the things we observed is that a lot of customers who were using SAP were struggling with infrastructure, and they were struggling with the cost of some projects and just the agility within those programs. So we wanted to start a company that would accelerate different parts of SAP implementations and SAP support. Because we could see there would be potential for big impact and hopefully an opportunity to build a company. And when we started, to be frank, we didn't really know what that meant. We knew there were some good partners out there, people who were coming up with sort of accelerator tools and maybe some new leading ideas. And we felt there was some white spaces that we could get into. And around that time, maybe 2009, we also recognized that the word cloud was beginning to be bandied around. And honestly, I didn't know much more than the word cloud. So we started investigating. At that stage, it was very clear AWS were the leaders. And we thought, well, hang on, this could be a good proposition, mainly for cost. I mean, that was our original idea, was that we could just lower the price for SAP customers. So we became a partner in 2010. That's when we did our first SAP migration, albeit a small one. And we decided, actually this was quite easy. And more than that, we began to see some brand new concepts for what we could do with SAP. So the ability to switch systems off when you didn't need them, that was revolutionary. But also the ability, we saw that we could join these APIs together into some automation very simply. And again, having been through the pain of trying to manage large SAP landscapes on premise, I immediately thought of some ways we could bring brand new ideas to customers. So we continued this for a few years, and I'll be frank, we were probably too early. Most SAP customers thought we were crazy to suggest putting these very important workloads on a public cloud, mainly because people didn't really understand it. And it was maybe another few years later, we started seeing some big brands now beginning to accept it. We did our first full production migration in 2015. That went live at the end of that year. And that was Seco, based out of Singapore. And they did a great reference case for us, and suddenly got a lot of interest. And we began to realize that these other tools and accelerators that we were thinking about actually were completely in a different ballpark to what AWS could become. So we went all in on AWS and took the message to the AWS team, the SAP team with Fernando and his team. And we brought the same sort of messages fundamentally to SAP customers, which is, with AWS, you can get not just lower cost, but you can dramatically improve operations. So you can get rid of a lot of the manual activities, and that leads to agility, which for SAP customers is a godsend. But ultimately, agility leads to innovation, and that's what everybody wants to try and achieve. But how you do with SAP is a bit of a conundrum. So we help customers solve that, and that's where we are today. And we're in every region around the world at the minute. We talk to customers of all industries, in all locations, and I'm still very excited about the potential of what we're going to do next with it.
Eamon, this is fantastic information. I really do appreciate you sharing this with us. You know, one of the things that we have seen is that we don't see SAP really driving their customers to any one particular provider. And so the question that I've got for you is, what can you do to help a customer make this decision to move SAP to AWS, for example, as a platform? And how do you even initiate that conversation so that it becomes more of a natural progression for them instead of you must go in this direction sort of dictate? And tell me what your experience has been with that, because to be quite honest, it's been not a huge uptake. We know that it's coming, but people are kind of dragging their feet. So tell me your experience with that and how you overcome that.
Well, you know, it's a great observation, and you're spot on with it. I think and it's really forced us, to be honest. I mean, even in the early days when not many people were doing this, we had to really understand what is the message. Well, what are we trying to convince people about? And you know, I think part of the challenge for people when it comes to selecting a cloud to put SAP on is understanding what the right criteria are. What are you trying to achieve? And I think that's where the art of the possible has to be explained to people. What can be done? And I think, and going back to your point, I think a lot of people don't know that yet. They still haven't. They may understand what AWS is, and they may have seen some e-commerce workloads running there. They may have seen some other workloads, but to experience SAP on cloud, you know, is the only way you can really get a sense of the art of the possible. So what I do with customers is I will try to explain to them and help them understand what criteria they should be using to make their decision. So what I start with is the real pain points, and the real pain points for most customers, obviously, is cost and agility. That's the kind of the things that we can solve. But again, back to my earlier point, it's all about innovation, and fundamentally, what Amazon has taught the world in many ways is innovation is the critical success factor of any company. The fact that if you can innovate, you will most likely be successful. If you cannot innovate, you're going to be in trouble. So we try to explain to customers that SAP is a huge part of their IT landscape, a huge part of their business. In fact, most companies, it is the main system in their business. If you want to innovate, you've got to have an agile SAP platform. So when you're trying to assess options for your platform, you've got to ask about agility. You've got to ask about automation. Where have you guys got to with that? What are your plans with that? And ultimately, how can I then innovate SAP and extend it into things like data lakes for SAP, or else even exposing SAP's APIs into the AWS API gateway, so you can orchestrate across SAP. So those opportunities, I'll be honest, I mean, a lot of people think it's sort of science fiction that you can do this with SAP, but of course, it's completely real today and can be done by any customer. So that's part of the conversation that we try to get across. And honestly, I do believe that when people start to see what we can do, what AWS can do for customers, there's a bit of an epiphany, and they begin to actually realize that it's very important that they get to cloud. And every month that they wait is another month of missed benefits.
You bet. In fact, what we're finding is awareness is not as, there's not as much awareness out there as we think there is. We live this every day. Mm-hmm. But in reality, many of these companies are dealing with many, many other things, and we're just a piece mm-hmm. of their overall set of problems or challenges. With COVID-19 coming down the pike, and the mere fact that the name Lemongrass isn't all that well known in terms of what you are as an organization. I mean, very, very valuable in the terms of SAP and deployment on AWS, but it becomes a challenge when now things need to be more focused on digital marketing and getting people to interact with you on a video type format in many cases. What have you seen is the biggest challenge to getting in front of customers in this period of time? Now we're going on 2 months of this. What have you seen COVID-19, both in terms of impacting your ability to reach customers and then impacting our customers' desire to maybe do something more in the cloud? Is there a collusion here? Is something happening that is working?
Yeah, there's definitely a couple of factors that are pushing in different directions, no doubt. So like the very first days of it, customers were saying cash preservation. That's what it's all about. Cash preservation, stop all spend, or any discretionary spend, at least anyway. And then after a while, people began to test their own supply chains. They began to test their own organizations and got a bit more confident that they could withstand it. So we saw people coming back and saying, no, we do want to do it, but we've seen a kind of delays in some of those start dates of new projects and new engagements. I do think that in terms of getting in front of new customers, it's definitely been difficult for us. I mean, I love being in front of customers. I love meeting people because, again, that's the easiest way to convince people of what is possible and to kind of take people through that journey. It's more difficult to do on video, but one thing with the Lemongrass, we have from day one, we're in effect born in the cloud. We've never had, big offices. We've never had people who have to commute into work. All of our people, they can work from home today quite easily, or they work from customer sites, but we don't, drag them into the office. And for us, we kind of set up to deal with it reasonably well. But I do think that when it comes to meeting new people and new customers, there's definitely an impact on that. Now, one of the other pressures that's coming, as you kind of hinted earlier, is we do see people begin to realize that this is another benefit of cloud. The resilience you have to people being locked down in effect. That most of this stuff is automated, most of it can be worked remotely. And in that respect, then the dependency on individuals to be in a certain place has been removed. So we saw like all of our customers who were running today productively, not a glitch, nothing changed, nothing happened. They were delighted that they were already on AWS because it meant they didn't have to do any contingency planning. There was no disaster rooms around their SAP system. Everything ran as normal. And so that benefit is probably going to become more important as part of their selection criteria about what to do next.
Eamonn, that's
fantastic. Thank you. Chip?
Yeah, thank you very much. Hey, that just about rounds things up in terms of time.
Sure.
Eamonn, I can't thank you enough. I know Mike's been dying to talk to you as well. So we're super excited to have had this opportunity with you. Got to ask you a big question though. Would you be willing to come back and join us for an encore performance?
Absolutely. Anytime, you let me know.
Wonderful. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Eamonn.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye all.